Could the COVID-19 pandemic have been a test run for future global crises? This is not a question we ask lightly. The world has been through a tumultuous time, and the repercussions are still being felt. One of the central theories circling the globe is that the pandemic was more than a health crisis. It's proposed that it was a dry run, a rehearsal, if you will, for future global crises. And the evidence? Well, it's as intriguing as it is chilling. Take, for instance, the Event 201 simulation. This was a pandemic simulation exercise held in October 2019, a few months before the world had even heard of COVID-19. The players, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Johns Hopkins University, and the World Economic Forum. The simulation eerily mirrored many aspects of the COVID-19 crisis that was yet to unfold. A global pandemic scenario was modeled, and the world watched in disbelief as life started imitating this simulated event. Then there are the whistleblower accounts from global organizations. In 2020, multiple insiders from organizations like the World Health Organization claimed that the pandemic response was not just about managing a health crisis. They suggested it was a dry run for testing global coordination in crisis scenarios. These are sobering thoughts, aren't they? The idea that the world's response to the pandemic could have been a rehearsal for something larger, something potentially more devastating, is a chilling prospect. It raises questions about what we've been through and what lies ahead. So, was the pandemic a mere coincidence, or a carefully orchestrated test run? The evidence is compelling, but the jury is still out. In the end, only time will reveal the full truth. But one thing is certain, the world has changed, and the lessons we've learned from this pandemic will shape our response to future global crises. Stay with us as we delve deeper into these theories and implications in the next scenes. The pandemic also exposed vulnerabilities in the global food supply chain, but were these disruptions accidental or engineered? As we navigated the world of lockdowns and social distancing, another crisis was brewing, a crisis that went beyond the virus itself, the global food supply. Shelves in supermarkets were stripped bare as panic buying took hold. Images of empty grocery stores flooded the media, creating a domino effect of fear and scarcity. But was this just a natural reaction to a global crisis, or was it a symptom of a more sinister manipulation of resources? Around the world, agricultural operations faced unprecedented disruptions. Farmers struggled with labor shortages as borders closed and workers fell ill. But even as these challenges mounted, something peculiar was happening. Leaked reports from within large agricultural corporations suggested that the pandemic was being used as a pretext to implement new methods of control over food supply chains. Global grain markets were suddenly under tighter control, and farming resources began to consolidate under fewer, larger corporations. In a world grappling with a health crisis, the control of food resources subtly shifted, raising questions about who really holds the power over our food. The fragility of the food supply chain was laid bare, highlighting how easily it could be disrupted and manipulated. But was this simply a consequence of the pandemic, or was it a calculated move, a strategic chess play in a game of global control? The manipulation and control of food resources have long been tools of power. History is littered with examples of rulers using food as a weapon, controlling its supply to maintain their rule. So could the disruptions we saw during the pandemic be a modern incarnation of this age-old strategy? Could the control of food resources have been a part of a larger plan? As we continue to grapple with the fallout of this global crisis, these questions remain unanswered, leaving us to wonder what comes next. The pandemic has reignited discussions about population control. Are these theories far-fetched, or do they hold some merit? In the whirlwind of the COVID-19 pandemic, one of the topics that has resurfaced with a vengeance is that of population control. It's a concept that is as old as civilization itself, cloaked in a modern context of global crises and public health. Theories abound, some more credible than others, but all tinged with a certain sense of unease. Take the rollout of the COVID-19 vaccines, for instance. The speed at which they were developed and distributed was unprecedented and in many ways a testament to human ingenuity. But critics argue that the coercive measures that accompanied the rollout, travel restrictions, employment mandates, and the like, may have been part of a broader agenda. An agenda to test the waters, to gauge just how much the global population would tolerate in the name of health and safety. And then there's the issue of surveillance. During the pandemic, governments across the world introduced or expanded surveillance technologies under the guise of public health necessity. Contact tracing apps, digital health passes, even drones monitoring social distancing. These became the norm, almost overnight. While these measures were introduced as temporary, critics fear that they may become permanent fixtures in our lives, further eroding our privacy and autonomy. The social credit system is another contentious topic. Initially introduced in China, the concept has been adopted in various forms by other countries during the pandemic. The idea of a society where behavior is monitored, evaluated, and rewarded or penalized is unsettling to many. Critics argue that it's a slippery slope, leading us towards a dystopian future where our every move is watched and judged. Can we dismiss these theories as mere conspiracy, or is there more than meets the eye? The truth, as is often the case, may lie somewhere in between. But one thing is for certain: the global response to COVID-19 has opened a Pandora's box of questions about control, consent, and the very nature of freedom. The public's compliance during the pandemic has been remarkable. But could this set a dangerous precedent for future authoritarian policies? Let's delve into this. The pandemic has seen an unprecedented level of public obedience. Lockdowns, mask mandates, and vaccine requirements were largely adhered to by the global populace. But the question arises: could this level of obedience be exploited in the future? There is some compelling evidence suggesting that it could. Leaked internal documents from the World Health Organization and various national governments have indicated that the COVID-19 pandemic was not only a crisis to be managed, but also an opportunity to gauge public compliance in the face of global challenges. These documents suggest that the response to the pandemic could be used as a model for future responses to perceived global crises, such as climate change, migration, and even future pandemics. The implication here is clear. The more compliant the public, the easier it is to implement potentially restrictive policies. Moreover, studies have shown that public compliance with government restrictions during COVID-19 was high. This may seem like a good thing, a sign of our collective willingness to protect each other in the face of a shared threat. But in the wrong hands, could this compliance be used as a tool for implementing more authoritarian measures? Now, it's important to note that this is not a call for disobedience. Rather, it's a call for vigilance. It's a call to question, to scrutinize, and to hold our leaders accountable. We must remember that our obedience is not a blank check for those in power. It's a trust that they must earn and continue to deserve. The precedent that the pandemic has set for public compliance is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it shows our capacity for collective action in the face of global threats. On the other, it could be a tool for manipulation and control. Are we setting ourselves up for a more controlled future? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain: we must remain vigilant, critical, and engaged, because the future is not something that is done to us. It's something we create together. As we navigate through these uncertain times, it's essential to question and seek the truth. We've journeyed together through some thought-provoking theories today. The COVID-19 pandemic, which has affected all of us in some way, has given rise to many questions. Was it a test run for future global crises? The Event 201 simulation, the whistleblower accounts, all seem to point to this being a possibility. We've also discussed the vulnerability and manipulation of our global food supply chain during the pandemic. The reported food shortages, panic buying, and the subtle shifts in control within agricultural corporations are all cause for concern. Then there are the theories surrounding population control and the global response to COVID-19. The rapid vaccine rollout, the coercive measures, and the increase in surveillance technologies have raised eyebrows and sparked intense debate. Finally, the compliance demonstrated by the global population in response to lockdowns, mask mandates, and vaccine requirements has set a potential precedent for future authoritarian policies. Now, we're not saying these theories are facts, but they are perspectives worth considering, worth investigating. We need to stay curious, ask questions, and critically assess the information presented to us. We must remember that every crisis, every global event is a learning experience, an opportunity to grow, to evolve, and to better prepare ourselves for what lies ahead. The COVID-19 pandemic has indeed changed the world in many ways. It has shown us our vulnerabilities, our strengths, and perhaps given us a glimpse into the future. Could it be a harbinger of what's to come, a precursor to future global crises? Or perhaps a wake-up call, urging us to pay attention, to question, and to seek the truth? Only time will tell. Until then, let's keep asking questions, seeking answers and striving for a better, more informed future for all.